Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is episode 2 of my Valentino Bay build series on Cities Skylines 1. In the last episode, we started with this rural farm, and I've got to say I'm pretty happy with the way that it came out. Thank you for all the feedback on this so far. It's really great to see some of the same faces still here after I've taken such a long break, and I'm really happy to see that you're liking it so far. In this episode, we're going to be moving on to the other side of this district and starting the town. The farm is in desperate need of workers, so I've zoned in a bunch of housing that will just be populating while I'm building. The town is going to have the generic vanilla theme because it's not meant to be anything fancy. This episode is going to focus on the main road running down the middle with some facilities and some commercial. This main road that runs through the middle is going to have all of the commercial for this district on it, as well as police, fire, some healthcare and education. I'm going to be mainly focusing on this top part of the road today because this section down here is going to have an education block that's going to be covered next episode. This high street isn't going to be anything remarkable, but there's going to be some small details that just elevate the build ever so slightly. The first thing I'm going to start out with is the facilities. Because I've got everything unlocked, they need everything from the get-go. I'm going to start with the basics and then do some commercial. I'm also going to put a warehouse yard in the corner next to the cargo train station. They might not need it right now, but it might come in handy in the future if they're transporting goods from miles away. By placing it on the corner and then moving it over as far as it can go while still being connected to the road, it means that you don't have this big empty space here in between the zoned areas. And then by putting in another asset next to it, it just kind of rounds this corner off nicely and make sure it's all used. I also like to do a line of trees down the back just to break it off from the houses behind, and another one down here to break it off from the commercial that's going to be on the road next to it. I'm going to add a small thin car park to the side of the fire station. This will allow people to park here, and it will also give use to this very large piece of concrete down here. The other facilities are police and healthcare. I'm going to use this police station here from the workshop, and I'm going to place it on this side and kind of line it up with the road going down beside it and just ever so slightly change the angle. And then I'm going to do the same with the healthcare as well. It's a very simple healthcare asset from the workshop, and if we just pull it back so it's at the same level as the police station and then turn it slightly and maybe bring the police station forward a little bit, we can get the concrete to line up on the back, and I think this just looks a little bit better than having them offset at an angle where you have that weird triangular stripe down the middle. So now I'm going to fill in these gaps with the concrete painter and do this bit around here as well. Annoyingly, the painter blocks from the workshop have disappeared, so that's going to have to unfortunately stay like that for now. I'm also going to round the back off with a fence. It's not exactly the same as the one on this police asset, but if I just pull it along to the hedge down here, and then that kind of breaks off the back a little bit. Because there's a ground decal here, I'm actually going to continue it to make it look like you can drive out this way from the back of the healthcare building. And then I'm going to add a very small car park to this side of the building, just to use up that concrete space a bit. I'm also going to add a couple of police cars out the front here just so we know exactly what this building is from a distance. It fills up some of the empty concrete on the front of the asset. Lining these buildings up so they're at the same angle makes such a big difference, even though there's quite a lot of empty space here. We can use these houses here as an example of what it would have looked like if I hadn't have moved them. They sit at slightly different angles on this road, and all of the straight lines on these two assets point in different directions, which gets really noticeable the longer the lines are. These are parallel with each other. It looks like they're fairly functional with the arrows around the back and the fence separating it off from the houses. Down here I'm going to do some commercial. I'm going to use some very simple low-rise commercial buildings for this, with a couple of vanilla ones, but they're going to be very stripped back and you probably won't even realise that they're from the vanilla catalogue. So because this is on a curved road, if I just place them down there would be a lot of clipping and they would kind of sit inside each other. So instead I'm going to place them all at the angle that I want them to be at and then line them up and move them all back away from the road. So here's my commercial buildings all lined up, but obviously this doesn't look very good because they're all really far away from the road and there's loads of empty concrete bits. So let me clean it up a little bit. So instead of having a bunch of commercial buildings that are all sitting out at different angles and overlapping each other and generally looking quite messy, we have a very neat and tidy strip that has this nice curved empty space out the front, and this would look a lot better from a pedestrian point of view as well. I'm going to try and squeeze a very small car park down the side here to try and fill this gap. This car park now sits very neatly underneath the trees. I'm just going to use the surface tool to neaten this up a little bit. Having the buildings lined up like this and then offset from the road still keeps that kind of grid structure, even if it is just with the buildings, but it works on a curved road still. And I personally think this is the best way to make a good commercial row on a curved road. I'm going to do the same on this block over here, and I'm also going to use some vanilla assets in this row. The second commercial strip is pretty similar to the first one, but it's got some vanilla assets in it. This one on the end down here is vanilla, but I removed all of the billboards and light up signs with the bob tool because I really am not a fan of how they look. And it's relatively the same height as the rest of the buildings on this row, so it fits in pretty well. And then down on this end, this is a cafe from the shopping malls pack. It kind of makes use of this corner a little bit more than just sticking another square building onto it. And it still leaves a lot of nice open space around the front for people to walk around. I added a couple of small car parks down the back here because of the annoying clipping with the surface tool. Losing the painter blocks from the workshop is a big blow for a city build series. I'm going to try and come up with other ways of filling these little pockets in the concrete, and for this one I'm going to use some trees to fill in these small gaps. It's not perfect, but it will do for now. It kind of disguises it from the sky, and you wouldn't have a tree going through concrete anyway. On this end down here, I'm going to place a car park because in these kind of American towns, you can never have enough places to park your car. This vanilla one fits in quite nicely in this space. I'm just going to line it up with the back of the assets and then fill in this gap with concrete. For this triangle down here, I'm not just going to leave it bare. I'm going to put a few planters with some decorative trees in. That rounds off this corner quite nicely on the end of this commercial row, and that also rounds up today's build. Like I mentioned in the first episode, I'm going to be doing more of these smaller, thoughtful builds in this series, so I can really pay attention to all of the little details rather than trying to rush through everything. Even with the small amount that I've done today, it already makes this district feel so much more lived in, and paying attention to the little details does have a big impact. The next episode will be focused on getting some primary and secondary education into the town, along with a little bit more healthcare and using a variety of parks to extend assets. Let me know what you think of today's build in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.